In a small, quiet village in Nigeria, tall palm trees line the dusty roads, their leaves swaying gently in the breeze. Under the hot afternoon sun, people move slowly, either carrying baskets of produce or guiding goats down narrow lanes. This was a place Owen called home. He was a young man of 22, humble in speech and actions, and possessing sharp intelligence. He lived with his mother, Margaret, in a modest wooden hut with a rusted tin roof. Their home stood near a small patch of farmland on the outskirts of the village, where the sky always seemed to stretch on forever. Margaret was a widow. Her husband, a hard-working man named Jide, had passed away years before, leaving Margaret alone to raise Owen. She sold palm oil to make a living. Each morning, she rose before dawn to process and package the oil. When the roosters began to crow, she would hoist large, heavy containers onto her worn-out headscarf and trudge to the local market. Despite the aches in her back and the relentless heat, Margaret pressed on, for she believed her sacrifices would secure a better future for her only child. Ever since Owen was small, Margaret had taught him the virtues of honesty, humility, and gratitude. Late at night, after finishing her work, she would open a tattered book and read to him by the light of a single flickering lantern. "Owen," she would say, her voice gentle but firm, "promise me that no matter how high you rise, you will never forget where you come from. Respect those around you, and never be too proud to say thank you." Owen would nod, his eyes filled with admiration for the woman who did so much with so little. There were days when there was not enough food for both of them. Sometimes Margaret pretended she wasn't hungry, just so Owen could have his fill of yam or a small bowl of rice. Owen would notice her face growing paler, but she always insisted she was fine. She believed if Owen could stay strong, physically and mentally, he would excel in school, and maybe someday he would escape the cycle of poverty. Owen witnessed many moments of sacrifice that shaped him profoundly. He remembered one rainy season when Margaret had to pay for his school uniform. She pawned her only gold bangle, a precious keepsake from her wedding, to afford Owen's uniform and books. That night, Owen had held the new uniform in his hands, tears mixing with the rain as it poured through the leaky roof. He vowed that he would make something of himself so that his mother's efforts would not go to waste. On his 22nd birthday, Margaret woke up earlier than usual. She prepared a simple meal, just boiled yam and a bit of pepper sauce, and quietly placed it on the small wooden table in their one-room home. Then she brought out a small box she had kept hidden. Inside were a few of Owen's childhood items, the small picture of him and his father, a pocket Bible, and a couple of old letters from relatives who lived far away. She handed the box to Owen, her eyes moist with both pride and sorrow. "My son," Margaret whispered, her voice quivering, "I have nothing much to give you. This box holds our memories and my prayers. Take it with you to the city. You must find your way, learn to stand on your own feet, and never forget to pray. When things get tough, remember who you are." Owen swallowed hard, tears threatening to fall. He hugged his mother tightly, overwhelmed by the reality that he would be leaving his village, possibly for good. "Thank you, Mama. I will never forget your words," he promised. Margaret held his hands firmly. "Go, my child. Go and find a better life. But do not become a stranger to me." They both laughed through their tears, though Margaret's heart felt heavy. She had saved for months to buy his bus ticket to Lagos. Now the day had come, and there was no turning back. With a final wave, Owen boarded the rickety bus and left the only home he had ever known, carrying with him a box of memories and an unbreakable bond with his mother. Stepping off the bus in Lagos was like walking into another world. Skyscrapers shimmered in the midday sun, and cars raced down wide, busy roads. The air smelled of exhaust fumes, street food, and endless possibilities. Owen held his small box close to his side as he navigated the crowded streets, unsure where to go first. For a few days, he slept on a mat in a cheap hostel, using what little money Margaret had given him to survive. Desperate for income, he found work as a day laborer in a large factory that manufactured plastic bottles. His job was to pack the finished bottles into boxes, hour after hour, sometimes without rest. The pay was meager, and the work was exhausting, but Owen never complained. Instead, he told himself, "This is just the beginning. one step at a time. He kept a small notebook where he wrote down ideas he had for starting a business. On weekends, he explored the busy markets of Lagos, fascinated by the hustle and bustle. It was there he noticed how traders sourced cheap electronics, phones, chargers, headsets, radios, and resold them for a profit. He began with a small investment, purchasing a few phone chargers and adapters. Slowly, he built a name for himself as a reliable vendor. He would stand on street corners or in busy shopping plazas, calling out to passers-by, "Chargers for sale, affordable and original." One fateful day, while he was peddling his wares, he met a businessman named Mr. Ade. Dressed in a crisp suit and shiny shoes, Mr. Ade was impressed by Owen's diligence. He admired the young man's honesty. Owen never sold fake products and always gave correct change. "Young man," Mr. Ade said, "how would you like to supply some electronics to my store? I can give you a small space to sell your items." Overjoyed, Owen seized the opportunity. In time, his sales grew. He stopped working at the factory and focused on buying electronics wholesale. He and Mr. Ade developed a respectful partnership. Owen's gift for negotiation earned him even more contracts. Before long, he started seeing real money in his account for the first time in his life. He moved out of the hostel to a modest apartment and even sent some cash back to Margaret. After nearly a year of success, something remarkable happened. Owen got a phone call from a large retail distributor who needed a bulk purchase of electronics. This deal was worth more money than Owen had ever dreamed of. He took a deep breath, signed the contract, and within weeks, profits flooded in. Overnight, Owen's status changed. He was no longer just the boy from the village with a few chargers in his hand. He was now a man with influence and wealth. Having tasted success, Owen began to surround himself with people who wore designer clothes and drove flashy cars. He moved from his modest apartment into a grand mansion in a gated community. He bought several luxury cars, sleek machines that turned heads everywhere he went. Whenever he walked into a room, people whispered about his meteoric rise. During this time, he met Amelia at a high society party. She was breathtakingly beautiful, with a confident stride and an effortless grace. She wore expensive jewelry and spoke with a polished accent. When she smiled at Owen, he felt as though all eyes were on them. She laughed at his jokes, complimented his intelligence, and told him he had the world at his feet. Owen, dazzled by her charm, fell quickly under her spell. Their relationship moved fast. Amelia encouraged Owen to indulge in more luxury, imported wines, weekend getaways, and extravagant gifts. She introduced him to her circle of friends, all of whom lived lavishly. Owen found himself buying things he never knew he wanted: gold watches, the latest designer shoes, and even paintings to decorate his mansion. The more he spent, the more he seemed to grow in Amelia's eyes. With his newfound accent, Owen began telling people a different story about his past. When someone asked about his family, he would wave dismissively, saying, "I have no parents. I built myself from nothing." He avoided calls from Margaret or, at best, sent short, cold replies. He even lied about his mother's existence, claiming she had passed away years ago. "I don't want to dwell on sadness," he would tell curious acquaintances. Back in the village, Margaret still prayed for him every morning and night. She did not hear from her son as often as she once did, but she comforted herself by saying, "He must be very busy. He's doing well, thank God." The neighbor who sometimes helped Margaret carry her palm oil to market grew suspicious. She had heard rumors of how wealthy Owen had become, but she saw no extra help arriving for Margaret. Still, Margaret kept her faith in her son, hoping he would remember her one day. Owen's life of opulence continued, and so did his relationship with Amelia. One evening, he planned a grand surprise for her, a lavish party where he presented her with a dazzling diamond necklace. Guests clapped, a live band played, and champagne bottles popped. Amelia, thrilled by the attention, kissed Owen on the cheek and gushed, "You are too kind to me, my darling." Owen grinned, feeling on top of the world. He never paused to consider how quickly his life had changed or whether Amelia's love was genuine. In the weeks that followed, Owen gifted Amelia luxurious items: the latest smartphones, designer handbags, and once, he even paid for an entire vacation to Dubai for her birthday. She wanted to open a boutique selling rare fashion pieces, so Owen funded it entirely, calling it Amelia's Emporium. The boutique became the talk of the town, and Amelia took all the credit while Owen beamed with pride. However, behind the scenes, Amelia was in contact with a group of con artists. They admired how easily Amelia had lured Owen with her beauty and charm. They instructed her to keep him spending and trusting. Soon, they convinced her to manipulate Owen into signing documents that granted her partial ownership of his assets. Whenever he hesitated, she would say, "My love, we are building a future together. Don't you trust me?" And he would cave in, flattered by her attention. Meanwhile, life in the village took a turn for the worse. Margaret fell ill with a severe cough and high fever. She tried to keep going, selling her palm oil, but her strength waned. Neighbors worried she might not recover without proper medical care, but Margaret insisted she would be fine. Finally, one concerned neighbor managed to find Owen's phone number and called him. When she told him of his mother's condition, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. The next day, Margaret received a text message from Owen's number. "Stop bothering me with village drama. I'm very busy." Those few words cut deeper than any knife. Margaret's hands trembled as she read them. She did not have the strength to reply. Instead, she lay in her small bed, tears rolling down her face, whispering to herself, "Owen, my son, what has happened to you?" Owen's fake friends continued to hype him up as the most successful young businessman in the city. They never questioned his decisions and always found excuses to flatter him. "Boss, you're the best. No one in the city can match you," they would say while drinking the expensive champagne he provided. Owen soaked in their praise, enjoying the attention far more than he enjoyed reflecting on the warnings his mother had once given him. He refused to think about the possibility of returning home to see Margaret. In his mind, the village had become a symbol of poverty and hardship. He told himself, "I can't go back there. That's not my life anymore." Little did he know, Amelia and her group of con artists were moving forward with their plan to strip him of everything he had. Climax, the collapse. It happened on a morning that began like any other. The sun rose, casting bright light through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Owen's mansion. He woke up feeling an odd emptiness in the house. Usually, Amelia's laughter or the chatter of maids filled the air. But that morning, the house was eerily silent. Puzzled, Owen walked through the rooms, calling her name. No answer. When he picked up his phone to check his bank balance, a sinking feeling gripped him. His banking app wouldn't allow him to log in. Panicking, he dialed customer service. The representative on the line told him that all his accounts had been frozen under suspicion of fraudulent activity. Owen's heart pounded. Fraudulent activity? He had never considered himself a fraud. He demanded to speak to a manager, but they insisted he sort it out in person at the bank. Rushing to the garage, he discovered that his cars were gone. Not one, not two, but all his luxury vehicles had vanished. Frantically, he went back inside the house to look for some hidden cash he kept for emergencies, but the drawers were open and the money was missing. His entire mansion had been stripped of valuables. Television sets, jewelry, and even some of his personal documents were nowhere to be found. Still in disbelief, he tried calling Amelia. No response. He dialed her number again and again. Nothing. He searched for any clue of her whereabouts, but found only a single note on the kitchen counter that read, "I'm sorry, Owen." The handwriting was unmistakably Amelia's. The brief message sent a chill down his spine. Slowly, the horrifying realization dawned on him. Amelia had set him up. Over the next few days, Owen tried to reach his so-called friends, but none of them answered his calls. He visited their usual hangouts, only to be told they had left town. The people he once called his brothers were gone. Eventually, the landlord of the mansion came forward with documents that revealed the house was no longer in Owen's name. Everything had been quietly transferred, leaving Owen with nowhere to turn. A week later, completely broke, Owen was given eviction notice. With no money in his account, no property, and no friends to lean on, he found himself sleeping in the very car he had scorned for being old just months before. It was his least expensive vehicle, the only one that had not yet been repossessed, but it barely ran. Yet there he was, a man who once wore designer suits, sleeping in tattered clothes in the back seat. One afternoon, hoping to escape the unrelenting despair, Owen walked into a nearby electronics store. He wanted to see if there was any familiar face who might remember him or offer some help. While waiting in line, he saw a news bulletin on a TV mounted above the checkout counter. The anchor read out headlines about a recently uncovered fraud ring. Police had arrested key members, and their faces flashed across the screen. Amelia's photo was among them. Owen's knees threatened to buckle. His mind raced with emotions: anger, disbelief, heartbreak. He realized that he was just another victim of Amelia's con. The woman he had trusted with his finances, heart, and future had used him. His fortune was gone, his friends were gone, and even his reputation was in tatters. Standing there in that store, Owen finally acknowledged the harsh truth. He had strayed from his mother's teachings and had lost everything, including himself. With nowhere else to go, Owen made the long journey back to his village. He had to gather what little money he could scrape up for the bus fare. The trip felt much longer this time, and every bump in the road reminded him of the luxurious cars he once owned. He carried only a small backpack with a change of clothes, the same battered shoes on his feet. His heart pounded as he neared the place he had abandoned in search of wealth. When he arrived, the afternoon sun was scorching, just as it was on the day he left. Walking through the village, he noticed that time had not stood still. Children he once knew had grown taller, and a few new houses had sprung up. Yet the pace of life remained slow and peaceful, a stark contrast to his frantic city existence. Villagers stared at him curiously. Some recognized him, some did not. But they all saw his worn face and ragged clothes. He found his mother's old mud house, the walls more cracked than he remembered, and the roof sagging. When he reached the front yard, he hesitated, ashamed and fearful. Eventually, he mustered the courage to knock softly on the wooden door. The neighbor who had once called him answered. Her eyes widened in shock when she saw him. "Owen," she gasped. "You came back." He bowed his head, unable to meet her eyes. "Yes, I need to see my mother. Is she inside?" The neighbor guided him to Margaret's bedside. His mother lay there, weak and frail, her eyes closed. Owen's heart constricted as he saw how much weight she had lost. Her once strong hands, so capable of carrying heavy containers of palm oil, now seemed thin and delicate. He knelt by her bed, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Mama," he whispered, his voice shaking. I'm so sorry. I don't know where to begin." Slowly, Margaret's eyes fluttered open. A faint smile tugged at her lips as she recognized her son. "You came back," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She tried to raise her hand to touch his face, but she could barely lift it. Owen gently held her fingers, tears dropping onto the worn blanket that covered her. "Mama, please forgive me. I was blinded by pride and money. I forgot who I am. I forgot you." Margaret struggled to sit up, and the neighbor helped prop her against some pillows. "Owen," she said softly, "you are my son. I can never stop loving you." At her words, Owen felt an overwhelming sense of guilt, relief, and gratitude all at once. He rested his head on Margaret's lap, remembering the countless times she had sacrificed everything for him. "I will make this right," he promised. "I have nothing now, but I will stay here and care for you." Margaret weakly stroked his hair. "You are still my son. That is enough for me." The neighbor watched, tears in her eyes, touched by the powerful reunion. Over the next few days, Owen used the last of his money to buy medicine for Margaret. The local clinic gave her basic treatment for her cough and fever. He also borrowed some money from a distant relative who lived a few miles away. Though it was a small sum, it allowed him to keep his mother stable and provide some food. Margaret began to show slight improvements, though she remained very weak. As the weeks passed, Owen dedicated himself to helping Margaret recover. He fetched water from the local stream, cooked simple meals, and cleaned the house. In his spare moments, he would sit outside the hut, gazing at the farmland where he once dreamed of escaping. Now, he felt strangely comforted by the familiar view of palm trees and open skies. In the evenings, Margaret would sit with him on a wooden bench in front of their home, recounting stories of his childhood. The villagers began to see a new side of Owen. Word spread that he had lost everything. Some pitied him. Others resented how he had neglected his mother. But gradually, many saw that Owen was trying to make amends. He was no longer boastful or dismissive. He greeted everyone politely and offered to help carry goods from the market to their homes. If the neighbor needed an extra hand in her fields, Owen was there, hoeing the dry soil under the sun. One day, Owen noticed a few young boys playing near a dilapidated shed. They reminded him of himself at that age, barefoot, curious, and full of dreams. He approached them cautiously, not wanting to scare them off. But they greeted him warmly, having heard stories of how he had gone to the city. With a gentle smile, Owen began telling them about the pitfalls of greed and pride, warning them about being too quick to trust strangers who promise easy wealth. You see, Owen explained, sitting on an overturned bucket while the boys gathered around, money can be a good thing if you earn it honestly and use it to help others. But if you forget who you are, if you forget your family and friends, you can lose everything. I learned this the hard way. The boys listened with wide eyes, some exchanging whispers. In their young faces, Owen saw hope and realized he had a responsibility to guide them. As Margaret's health slowly improved, Owen decided to put what energy he had into the land. He cleared a small patch behind their house to grow vegetables, tomatoes, peppers, and greens. Margaret, still weak, would sometimes sit on a wooden stool to watch him work. She would offer gentle advice, recalling the techniques her late husband had used. Over time, the garden began to flourish. The sight of green leaves and growing produce brought a sense of renewal to their once somber home. Seeing Owen's dedication, a few villagers who owned larger farms offered him small day jobs. He would help plant cassava or tend to goats and sheep. The pay was tiny compared to his old city lifestyle, but every small amount helped to buy medicine for Margaret and keep food on their table. More importantly, it gave him pride in honest labor, something he had once dismissed. Months went by, and Owen became a familiar figure in the village again, not as a wealthy show-off, but as a humble helper. He spent evenings talking with the young boys about staying in school, respecting their parents, and working hard. Some of the older villagers who once frowned at his arrogance began to see that his repentance was genuine. They offered him kind words and sometimes even small gifts of food or clothing for Margaret. One day, while walking on the main dirt road, Owen saw a car approach him. It was covered in dust from the journey, but it looked like an expensive vehicle. As it came to a stop, a man in a neat shirt and trousers stepped out. Owen recognized him immediately. It was Mr. Ade, the businessman who had first given him a chance in the city. Owen felt both shame and surprise flooding through him. "Owen," Mr. Ade called out, smiling. "I've been searching for you. When I heard what happened, I tried to reach you, but your phone number was disconnected. People in the city told me you'd return to your village." Lowering his head, Owen responded quietly, "Yes, sir. Things did not go well for me. I lost everything." Mr. Ade approached and placed a hand on Owen's shoulder. "I'm sorry about your troubles, but I remember you as a smart and honest young man before all of this happened." Owen nodded, trying to hold back tears. "I appreciate you coming all the way here," he said, "but I have nothing left to give. No money, no business. I'm just trying to care for my mother." Mr. Ade shook his head. "I didn't come here for money. I came to see if you would be interested in starting over. I have a new business proposal, and I could use someone with your skill, if you've learned from your mistakes." Stunned, Owen stared at Mr. Ade, unsure if he had heard correctly. "You would trust me again? After all the foolish things I did?" Mr. Ade gave a thoughtful nod. "Life has a way of teaching us lessons. I see that you have changed, Owen. The question is, are you ready to work hard with integrity? If so, I have an opportunity for you in Abuja. It won't be as glamorous as before, but it's honest work with a fair chance to grow." Owen paused, thinking of Margaret, who still needed him. "I won't leave my mother alone. She's still recovering." Mr. Ade offered a reassuring smile. "Of course, she can come with you, or you can make arrangements for her care. I will even help arrange a small place for both of you, so your mother can receive better medical treatment in the city. But the final decision is yours, Owen. Overwhelmed by gratitude, Owen felt tears pricking his eyes. Thank you, sir. Thank you for seeing something good in me. I will do my best. I promise I won't let pride blind me again. Mr. Ade nodded, clearly pleased. That's all I want to hear. Later that evening, Owen spoke to Margaret about Mr. Ade's offer. She listened quietly, then placed a trembling hand on his cheek. My son, you have learned an important lesson. If this man is willing to help, and you believe this will give us a fresh start, then go. I will support you. But always remember, let humility and honesty guide you. Never abandon your roots again. Owen embraced her, tears in his eyes. He remembered the vow he made to himself back when he was just a boy. He would make his mother proud. Although he had lost sight of that promise for a while, he intended to keep it from now on. In the following days, with the help of Mr. Ade, Owen arranged a transfer to the city for both himself and Margaret. They would stay in a small but comfortable apartment near Mr. Ade's new business site. Margaret would receive proper medical care, and Owen would start from the ground up, learning everything from accounting to sales, this time with discipline. On the day they left the village, neighbors gathered to bid them farewell. Children waved, calling, "Come back soon, Brother Owen," as he helped Margaret into Mr. Ade's car. Before they drove off, Owen took one last look at the old mud house. Even in its dilapidated state, it symbolized home, a place of unconditional love and forgiveness. Their journey to the city felt different this time. Owen no longer dreamed of flashy cars or massive mansions. His thoughts centered on working hard, taking care of Margaret, and living a life grounded in the values she had instilled in him. When they arrived, Mr. Ade greeted them warmly at the small apartment. It wasn't a palace, but it was clean, secure, and close to a good hospital. Over the weeks that followed, Margaret's health improved under better medical supervision. Owen threw himself into his new job with Mr. Ade. This time, he was careful with money, ensuring that most of his earnings went to Margaret's welfare and modest savings. Whenever he felt a twinge of vanity, he remembered the pain of betrayal and the loneliness of losing everything. In the evenings, when he finished work, Owen would call the village children he had mentored. He spoke to them about staying true to themselves, always reminding them to respect their parents. Their voices on the other end of the line filled him with hope. He realized that part of his life's mission was to guide others so that they did not repeat his mistakes. Months turned into a year. Owen's efforts began to bear fruit. His honesty and diligence attracted the attention of more investors. Mr. Ade was pleased with his progress, often praising him in front of clients. By now, Owen had saved enough money to pay off small debts and even send funds to improve his mother's house in the village. With tears of joy, Margaret told him over a simple meal one evening, "My son, I am proud of who you have become." One day, as Owen walked down the street near his new apartment, he passed a group of men in fancy suits, laughing loudly about their weekend escapades. For a moment, he was reminded of his old life and felt a pang in his chest. But instead of envy, he felt relief that he had escaped that shallow world of meaningless luxury. He realized that true wealth was not in owning the most expensive car, but in having integrity and a clear conscience. On a cool morning, Owen decided to take Margaret for a walk in a nearby park, something he never would have done in his old life. As they strolled along a path lined with flowers and tall trees, Margaret smiled, leaning on her son's arm for support. "This is the life I always prayed for," she said softly, looking up at him with gratitude in her eyes. Owen held her hand gently. "It's just the beginning, Mama. We have a lot of life ahead of us." The following week, Owen received an invitation to speak at a small youth seminar in his village. The community leaders wanted him to share his experiences, both the success and the downfall, so that others could learn. Nervous but determined, Owen agreed. He traveled back with Margaret, who was strong enough now to make the journey. Standing on a makeshift stage in the dusty village square, Owen gazed at the faces before him. Children sat on benches, wide-eyed, while older villagers leaned forward, remembering him as the boy who once left with grand ambitions. He spoke honestly about his mistakes, how pride and greed had led him astray, and how betrayal had taught him the importance of humility. After he finished, the crowd applauded, not with the frenzy of a city party, but with the genuine warmth of a community that believed in second chances. Many walked up to him, thanking him for sharing his story. Some asked for his advice on starting small businesses. Others simply offered a pat on his shoulder, a silent gesture that said, "We're glad to have you back." Later that day, he walked around the village with Margaret by his side, her arm in his. The old mud house, now undergoing repairs with the money he had sent, stood as a testament to new beginnings. Children ran around them, laughing. The sky stretched overhead, just as it always had, bright and clear. Margaret turned to Owen. "You see, my son, God has ways of bringing us back home, teaching us lessons we did not want to learn." Owen nodded, a peaceful smile on his face. "Yes, Mama, I understand now." In that moment, Owen felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He was far from the rich and famous man he once was, but he was richer in heart. He had reclaimed his identity. He was Margaret's son, a humble, hard-working man who had tasted both victory and defeat and come out stronger. As they continued walking down the village path, he looked at his mother and silently thanked her for her unwavering love and faith. Though he knew the future would bring its own share of challenges, Owen was ready. He had learned that true success meant more than money or status. It meant being rooted in values, remaining grateful for every blessing, and never turning his back on loved ones. With Margaret's hand in his and the promise of honest work waiting in the city, Owen looked forward to each new day, determined to live with integrity and to guide others on that path as well.